Hi, and welcome to the Reiki from the Farm podcast, brought to you by me, Pam Allen-LeBlanc from Hidden Brook Farm. I am a scientist, a businesswoman, and a licensed Reiki master teacher with the International Center for Reiki Training. Each week in this podcast, you'll be entertained as you learn about a wide variety of relevant Reiki topics, helping you become a more knowledgeable and effective Reiki practitioner. We caution you, though, this podcast may also dramatically improve your life, and we are so happy that you're here. On this week's podcast, I'm here with my friend and licensed Reiki master teacher, Jay Jackson, talking about Reiki crystals and his Reiki Crystal Healing Course. Welcome, Jay.
Thank you.
It's so nice to be here. So nice to be with you. Before we dive in, though, just wanted to let you know what we have coming up at Reiki from the Farm. The month of April is a really busy month. April 5th and 6th is a level 1 and 2 class. The evenings that week, the April 7th to 10th, is a master class. The weekend of April 12th and 13th is Animal Reiki 1 and 2. And the evenings is followed by an Animal Reiki master class. Also, we're looking at having an evening animal communication level 3 class from 7 to 11 Eastern time, Friday and Saturday, April 25th and 26th. And this is also for our Asian students. It will be mornings for them. So if you want to take animal communication to the next level, that's available. And then at the end of the month, Tracy Sullivan and I will be teaching after our pilot class, we will be teaching our first official healthcare Reiki course in person at Silver Bay, New York. The April classes, by the way, are all online and in person at the farm just outside of Fredericton, New Brunswick. And the healthcare Reiki class will be in Silver Bay, New York, April 30th and May 1st, just ahead of the Northeast Reiki retreat. And we'll actually be talking about healthcare Reiki at the Northeast Reiki retreat. I'll put a link in the podcast if you would like to join us. Of course, this summer, I have our whale classes in Campobello, Reiki 1 and 2 in Masters, Animal 1 and 2 in Masters. Those are both online and in person. Would love to have you join us for those. I should mention the evening classes are only online in April, but the weekend classes are both online and in person. It would be very strange to have people here till midnight, I think, and strange for them too. Jay, what do you have coming up for classes? And do you have any crystal classes coming up?
So I have crystal classes coming up. So I teach 3 different levels of crystal classes. The first one I just call Reiki Crystal Introduction, which is a 2-day class. And then there's an intermediate class, which is another 2-day class. And then we also have an advanced teacher training class, which is a 3-day class. And I'm not sure exactly when that falls in, but that class takes a little bit of preparation. When I teach a master class, I do teach it over 2 different weekends.
Right.
So it'll be a Saturday, Sunday, and then the following Saturday is how I'll teach that. And so I have those scheduled throughout the year. And those classes right now are all remote, virtual.
Yeah.
Which has been a little bit interesting going from something so tangible as crystals and teaching in person to online. It's been interesting to see how that works, and it works. And it's really just really wonderful to be able to teach those energies. Also with that, so when I would be teaching in person, students would receive a crystal kit. So they would receive all the crystals in the class. But when we're doing it online, I give the students the list of crystals in advance of what they need to acquire, and they can go out and pick out their own stones and purchase them. And so then the tuition is much more reduced because they're not including the crystals.
Right.
Yeah, so I have so much fun with teaching them, and it's transformative what we do, really grounding work. I've seen a lot of people being able to use this crystal healing with remote sessions, which is really interesting. So I've had a couple of students who were having some difficulties with their physical bodies and facilitating sessions. And they found that by using a crystal session, they were able to focus better and they were using better mechanics and it was more sustainable for them. And so
Okay.
it was just really cool. And I know that you have such a love for animal Reiki.
Hmm.
And so just for people who, for me, animal Reiki and crystal healing really go hand in hand because some of the basis of those energies coincide. It's that appreciation and connection with something that is not human. And because then we realize, yes, we are important. We're not the only element in the world that matters.
Right.
And then these other elements in our planet are helping to heal the planet and as well as healing ourselves. So I just have a great passion for anything that work that we do. And these are classes that are, I should say, are all derived from Laurel Shantigaya's coursework. So
Right.
she was very instrumental in the International Center for Reiki training for many years. She actually developed the licensing program and she ran the licensing program for many, many years. And she was a beautiful mentor for me because she put in the work. She was human. I put her up on a pedestal, but she was human. And she really spent time connecting with the energies and spending time to meditate and to create. And I have so much love and appreciation for her because she was very creative. Even in her later years, after she had had a significant near death experience where she had a 2% chance of survival and survived
Yeah.
and had significant limitations, she was still creating.
Yeah.
It's just amazing to me. So she had a beautiful connection with the Lemurian energies, which is like the foundation of the crystal courses that she connected with and developed. And so there are some beautiful Lemurian guides that come through and help with this work. And I
I,
had that connection
yeah. With
long before I had even met Laurel. And so there's a lot of different publications about Lemuria and where that was. And I don't necessarily delve into those theories and things too much because I know what I know energetically, and I just stick with that. Sometimes I think we use the same language for different things, perhaps, but it's just so it's absolutely beautiful the peaceful energy that works with in doing the crystal work.
I want to come back to that because I've been told some things about Lemuria too, and I definitely want to come back to that. Just on classes, though, Jay, are you also teaching Reiki classes, or are you primarily?
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Yeah.
You know what? Yeah, I teach monthly a Reiki 1 and 2 class. Absolutely love teaching Reiki 1 and 2 class. I love seeing students have that going, okay, I'm really curious and I'm really drawn to this class, but does it really work?
And then
And
when
to
they
see
see that it
like,
works.
okay, something's happening. So I love seeing that. And I do teach the master class, the Holy Fire Usui master class, 3 to 4 times a year. And again, I'm doing the split weekend schedule for that. So Saturday, Sunday, and the following Saturday.
Right.
And about twice a year, I'm offering the Karuna Reiki class as well.
That's what I do
And
about twice a year. Yeah.
yeah, and then the animal Reiki classes have been so much fun and so transformative. Like I say, to me, it goes hand in hand with the crystal classes
Oh,
energetically, and they just work
absolutely.
really well. Yeah, so I love teaching it, and I love seeing what students gain from it, and. the work that they're doing. I've had several students, and you probably have too, Pam, that have no intention of working with animals, but yet they take the animal Reiki class and it helps improve their connection with divine source
Yep.
and with their empathy towards anything and everything in life.
Yep.
And it just opens them up. And
Personally healing too, isn't it?
personal healing, exactly.
Yeah, I've had
Yes,
that.
it's just
Who
to
say
me,
I'm
it's
not
amazing.
really an animal person, but I was guided to be here. And then at the end of the class, they say, "Oh," and it also really helps them in their human practice, like working with humans, because humans are an animal.
We're an animal, but yeah, but we're animal, but we are, and we need to view ourselves maybe just a little bit differently. And
Yeah,
when we view ourselves a little bit differently, then we can heal
right.
better, more clearly.
I
So
love that. Jay, you've had some significant changes, and I just want to follow up because
constantly.
yeah, constantly, right? Taking you in so many lovely directions. Our first podcast together, we spoke about you being a part of the LGBTQ community, and there was a complexity to that for you because having grown up, was it in the Mormon community, Jay?
Correct, huh? Yeah.
Right. And it just wasn't. It was it that that added a lot of complexity for you being part of the LGBTQ community. What's been happening there? Has anything changed there? Anything to report upon?
Well, just some interesting observations. So I have some people that will get frustrated with me that I don't have the anger
Really?
around the situation. They go, yeah, you should be a little more, you should be pissed with, with how things went down and how you were treated. And that's just not Jay's nature. That's just not my nature.
No, it's not.
Um,
And it's
so
also anger doesn't harm
it,
anybody but you.
exactly. And while I appreciate their recognizing the difficulty of the journey, but yeah, anger is because if I would have dealt with anger, then I would have been denying my connection to source energy. And so just because I was no longer a part of a religious spiritual practice doesn't mean I gave up my spiritual practice.
Right.
And so that doesn't serve me. But what I did have discovered though is that a lot of us in many different religions have religious injuries.
Yes.
And Holy Fire really brought that up to a lot of people
Mhm.
and showed us that we had healing to do about some of the religious injuries that would have occurred. Some of them were quite innocent, to
Yeah.
have people injured. Others were much more malicious. And so it's not just the LGBTQ community, it's all of the community as a whole. But I'm able to connect with some of those people and help them navigate some of those challenges of how do I navigate now without the church or my religion? What does that say about myself? How do I live authentically? And so there's a lot of people, quote unquote, in the closet about their church. They're no longer attending church, but yet they don't want to tell their families they're not attending church and why. So that there's just a lot of interesting things there that people can heal. But then there's beautiful aspects of religious worship that are very beneficial to some people. And to be able to honor that. And it's okay. It's okay to have both experiences. Yeah, so we don't have to have one or the other. I would never tell someone to leave their church just because that didn't work for me. That would be the last thing I do. If it works for you and you're getting help in becoming authentic and there's beautiful opportunities to be able to serve, I would support you and would want to help you in any way I could to help realize that. But if you're just being stagnant and are not in
It's
that process of
abandonment.
actually, yeah, it's okay to change and move
Yeah.
and onto something different.
Yeah, that's such a good point, Jay. I love that. And I have lots of students who the church and Reiki really go well together for them. And then I have others that they've just outgrown wherever they were with the church. And this is from a variety of religions. And I always think about Tracy Sullivan and when we talked about Reiki and Catholicism, which is the way that she was raised, and that realization that she had when she was attending a Christmas Eve service with her mother. And for the first time ever, she got a similar feeling in that Christmas Eve service that she gets with Reiki, just that connected, spiritual, wonderful feeling. And she realized, oh my gosh, this is probably what my mother gets from church. Because for her mom, church was really central and important. And not long after that, her mother was present as Tracy did a Reiki session for a mutual friend, actually, of theirs. And her mother was amazed because she came to Tracy with big eyes and said, wait, that's the same feeling that I get in church. And so I think everybody approaches spirituality and religion differently. And for some people, the religion that they were raised in and Reiki just works so beautifully together. I have people from every religious experience where Reiki really enhances their religion and spiritual practices in such a beautiful way, and then others where it doesn't. So
So I had those beautiful connections to Ecuador.
yes, and that's my next question, because we were talking about Reiki nomads in our next podcast together, and you've had to step away from Ecuador. You're in the US now. You've written a beautiful book. Tell us about all of that.
I wanted to tell you when we're still in the religious aspect
Listen,
real
yeah.
quick. On my first trip to Ecuador, towards the last, I spent some time in Quito, which is the capital city of Ecuador, has a elevation of 9,200 feet high, and it's just a beautiful, wonderful city. And they have a beautiful Catholic basilica there. And I've been the historic part of town. And we went up to go visit this um, beautiful basilica, and they were having a service. I can't remember, it was like maybe a Friday evening or something like that. And we paid our $2 to be able to go into the door, and there was a mass going on. And and it was beautiful. And I was able to see the beauty of what was going on there. There's just a beautiful energetic presence. And I've seen this in practice, a lot of other different churches, but at one point the service got to the point where it was people were to greet their neighbors.
Yes.
And so we were just clear off to the side. We weren't even in the chapel itself, but this man and wife came up to us and gave us the biggest, most loved filled hugs. And that experience was so pivotal to me because even though I'm not Catholic, I was able to see these people have the love. They're experiencing love. And that was so beautiful. And that was 2 years ago, November. Yeah, it was just, to me, it was just wonderful to be able to see people have that kind of love and to share that love with other people.
I love
And
it.
that's really what all of us should be about, is
Yeah,
sharing love with
it
each
is.
other.
There's a theory that I saw, and I can't even remember. It was maybe something I did with Hay House, where if religions are a pie, when we first start learning about the religion, we're out on the crust of the pie. But as we learn more and more, we keep going through. And when we're out on the crust, we often say, I'm this part, I'm Christian, or I'm Muslim, or I'm Buddhist, or I'm Zoroaster. And we think we're different. And then it's only as you learn more and more, you get toward the center of the pie, you go, wait a minute, we're the same, just because.
We're the same. And the pie is sweeter in the middle.
And the pie is
All
pie for breakfast this morning. So
right.
it doesn't matter which road that we take to get there. It only matters that we get there. And so it is just so beautiful when we can be open to all of the religions. But now tell me a little bit about Ecuador, because the last time we talked, you were a Reiki nomad, you picked up your life and you had moved down, you built a house in Ecuador, but I do know you've had to come back to the States, at least temporarily. What's happening there?
I'm still embracing the term nomad.
Hmm. Good.
And I'm wearing that badge of honor as a nomad. Why? Because that means I'm just trying to be open to what the divine wants for me
Yes.
in the current now in time. And I would never trade the experience of the last 2 years with Ecuador at all. I absolutely love it. So I still own my house
Yeah.
there in Ecuador and have it rented out currently. I actually felt more sense of community when I was living in Ecuador than I have anywhere else. So I
Wow.
really love that. But part of me is I'm a nurse. I'm a registered nurse. And so even though I got burnt out and from nursing and needed to make that change, bec- the nursing at that time was, I wasn't able to be involved in my Reiki practice as much because I was working 60, 70 hours a week as a nurse. And so it's hard to teach classes, it's hard to facilitate sessions when just physically exhausted from working. Even though I was using Reiki in my nursing practice, I still wasn't teaching and offering sessions as much.
And you were nursing
That had
through COVID, which was difficult as well.
through COVID, through intensive care, the worst of it. So when I went to Ecuador, I did end up, I had started writing a little book just on, I'll just show,
That
where does this,
was
if I can bring it here without you. Nurse burnout to breaks, if you can see that there.
beautiful.
You can't
It
hear
is, there it is, Jay. And where can people find your book?
it. Just on Amazon, go on Amazon. But it also applies to other people who are in any kind of burnout situation. Some of the principles are can cross over. Even though I was working my Reiki business much more full time, and I was offering sessions remotely and classes, I still, I hate to say this, was just a little on the board side.
Right.
Honestly, that was really kind of part of it because I am a little bit of a workaholic, and I'll admit that.
I've known that about you.
Yeah, I'm a
I
workaholic, and
recognize that.
it gets me into trouble. The other thing is when I was in Ecuador, I did had a nasty fall and broke my arm and had to have a couple surgeries. And one surgery, they did the best they could in Ecuador, but the damage was severe enough it wouldn't have mattered if I was in Ecuador or any place. And so I ended up having to have a total shoulder replacement.
Oh,
And
man, I didn't realize that.
yeah, so but
You needed
hey,
surgery. I didn't know what it was.
yeah, so yeah, so I had a couple surgeries. So it was interesting having surgery in Ecuador,
Yes.
and not speaking Spanish really well. Um, but I was at least had the nursing part of me, so I was able to experience, being able to I was going. But one of the funny thing was is that when they were waking me up from surgery, they were all yelling at me, yelling at me, like, huh, huh, and they're all saying Desperado. And I was going, and I wasn't sure what they meant. And then finally, someone looks on their phone and go, breathe. Oh, okay, breathe. They were just trying to wake me up from anesthesia. So, anyways, so I came back in July to the United States and started doing some travel nursing assignment. So financially, just looking at my plan, and so then was doing some travel in Cottonwood, Arizona, right out of Sedona. So I was there for the Reiki retreat. So it was wonderful. And then I was able to come back to Las Vegas in a very different role. So now I'm a registered nurse care manager. And so this is much more sustainable for Jay because it's just an 8 to 5 job, only 40 hours a week.
Nice.
And some of my wonderful family members, okay, Dad, you're not going to work a second job, right? You're not going to work nights on top of that. You're
I
not
was
going to
going to say,
work.
you kind of are working a second job teaching Reiki.
I am. I'm teaching Reiki and giving sessions and stuff. But I'm they know me that I would, but I love the role that I'm in because nursing can be so flexible, which also goes in the book that nursing has lots of different opportunities. And so part of my role now is helping to identify patients who are at severe risk for hospitalization and to give them the resources to prevent them from having to need to go to the hospital. So my job is to keep people out of the hospital.
Wow, that's
It's
totally aligned.
wonderful.
Yeah.
And because when as a nurse, it was so frustrating to seeing patients who had poor access to health care,
Mhm.
and that's why they ended up. So a lot of times it had nothing to do. Maybe it was a lifestyle, but they weren't getting the resources they needed to learn and change. And so for me, in some ways, I feel like I'm now part of a solution versus trying to take care of problems that were never had not been addressed for many years. So
Right.
I'm working
Yeah.
for a hospital system or a healthcare system that's a not-for-profit, and they're all about evidence-based practice versus financial-based. So here
Oh,
in the United States, there's a lot of for-profit organizations, and a lot of the decisions that are being made are about profit. How much money can we earn from this
yeah.
mission? And so, yeah, it's nice to have a very different environment. So I'm enjoying that role and I'm learning it. So I'm back in Las Vegas doing that. What's interesting right now that my job is remote, so I'm working from home,
Yeah.
and so I'm honestly just allowing the energies to move me forward. I don't know what the future is going to look like. I've known in the past several years manifestation is real. We can manifest. But sometimes are we manifesting something that's not authentic to ourselves?
Oh, yeah.
So that's just one of the questions that I'm posing for myself.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, so just I'm enjoying being the journey, being part of this journey, and being a nomad. And being a nomad just means I'm being open to the possibilities.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you ever remember watching the movie Chocolat.
Yes. Love that.
I love that movie Chocolat, and that just came to me this morning as an analogy for my life.
Yeah.
And so the main character was this beautiful lady and who had
Yeah.
this daughter who traveled from town to town, opening up a little chocolate business. And she was in, I think it was France.
Yeah.
That was,
You say chocolate.
yeah, and yeah, and very conservative little community. And here she was, all these new ideas, and when the wind changes, when she would move on, she also carried her mom's ashes around with her. And as she was feeling the panic, the wind changed, that she needed to move, the ashes fell and dumped in the house and scattered throughout the house. And then that was her permanence.
Absolutely.
Oh, this is okay. I'm no longer. So I don't know when those ashes are going to fall, or what are going to be, or I'm just going to be going from wind to wind. I don't know. I'm just being open. And sometimes that's a little bit frustrating, but it's also a little bit liberating as well. Just, I'm not going to put a
Yeah.
stamp on this is where I'm going to be. Who knows? I don't know.
And nobody knows really.
We
So
don't.
none of us know. And
And even as much as we'd like and want to know, sometimes knowing is not always the best in our interest.
that's great. Yeah. I love that. Jay, let's swing. Thank you for the follow-up. I know that listeners are probably curious because we talked about those other subjects. Let's swing into talking a little bit about crystals now. What drew you to crystals in the first place?
Crystals were a very pivotal part of my life. So when were crystals not a part of my life? I guess is
Okay.
really so
That's more of
crystals.
a question.
I always tell people crystals are what brought me to Reiki because I had a connection with crystals and crystal healing long before I knew about Reiki.
Like animal Reiki then, Jay, because horses brought me to Reiki.
Yeah, I can remember even as a young teenager, playing with the rocks, and I was playing as like a shaman.
Wow.
I created this beautiful crystal grid. I'd never heard of the term crystal grid or anything like that before. And I was just playing and I was just working with energy. I was working with energy with
Yes.
these crystals. And all of a sudden I could feel the energy and no, totally no experience, no one, no internet, no books or anything to talk about what you're doing. And at that time, it scared me because I was still in a very conservative religious life, but I was feeling the energy from that. And so I always knew that there was the power in it. And then later on, then it was working what I mentioned that my father and I learned how to facet precious gemstones. And it was through those precious gemstones and working with them and making those divine connections with them that I learned to have a deeper appreciation for even just little teeny tiny stones.
I
And
always loved stones. There's just, you're
just,
right. I
just,
collected
oh,
rocks. I still collect rocks. I can't help it. I try not to. I
and
can't.
even rocks that just from face value don't aren't that beautiful. Sometimes it's just energetically will speak to you.
Yes.
Colleen Bonelli mentions in a story that she picked up like a piece of rock off the road that spoke to her. It
Yep.
was like a piece of gravel, and it was a transformative experience for her because she was getting information and message that she needed in her time of life. So I was working with crystal healing energies long before
Okay.
um, Reiki, though, was extremely transformative for me
Right.
and really connected a lot of the dots with the crystal healing because now we're able to, crystals themselves are much more intuitive. The energies of the crystals themselves are very intuitive, like Reiki is. But most of us practice, or in the world in general, practice with rocks as a this is an element that's going to affect change,
Right.
just like adding this and this to a brew, we're going to create something. But in the crystal healing courses, we're starting to understand and appreciate the life force of the crystal itself. And that's really the important aspect of the classes that I teach
Mhm.
is that there is an energy, a consciousness of these stones that can help us to work with Reiki. So even in our Reiki classes, like our Reiki master classes, we talk a little bit about grid work,
Yep.
and so that just gives us the basics. The crystals themselves can vibrate at very specific frequencies that can vibrate long times, a period of time. We just need to put energy onto it on a regular basis, then it's going to transmit those Reiki frequencies for sustainable periods of time. And so that's just an extremely important element. And then as we become much more intuitive in working with clients in crystals, the crystals will tell us who wants to be used. I did a crystal session here just a week or two ago on this beautiful lady, another Canadian actually.
Aw.
And I always have crystals about, and even before I started this session, I had three crystals say me.
Mhm.
And so I sat down and was doing the session, and then I had one crystal that said, I'm the one. And so during this session, I've got this gorgeous little crystal. It wasn't a very big crystal. And then I just started looking at all the intricacies of the crystals and energetic aspects of this crystal, and it was incredible how it facilitated the session because it has intuition that I don't have.
Do you know, Jay, that I never used to tell people, but under my Reiki table, I actually had a different crystal at where each of the chakras would have been. And I don't know, I was just guided to do that. I was like, okay, their sacral chakra is going to be about here. This is the crystal that wants to be here. And so as people laid on my Reiki table, the crystals, I didn't even remember after a while that those crystals were there. It's just when I first set it up that I was guided to do that. And do you know that in England, when we did our master class, during the attunements, William always would invite us to bring our crystals to class. So I remember traveling to England for the week of the classes with one suitcase, and it was filled with books and crystals and just three pairs of pants. That's it. Because I was and so we all placed our crystals in the center. And during the attunements, we noticed it particularly with the clear quartz that there were bubbles and cracks in the quartz after the attunements that hadn't been there before. And I've noticed that during some of the ignitions, that is starting to happen, even with the online classes, that has been starting to happen for some of my students as well, which is so interesting that can be. But yes, there is a consciousness. And I know this lamp, although it looks like a salt lamp, this lamp behind me is rose quartz. And when I first stepped into my Reiki journey, I had to work, I just was so drawn to rose quartz. I had to work with rose quartz almost always. And it was, I think, self-love. I had to, that's what I was working on. And the rose quartz has this wonderful, what did you call it? Is the consciousness around self-love that was really helpful. And
It
man,
has such a sweet energy that's just sweet and peaceful and kind and loving all at the same time. And then there are other crystals that are a little bit more, we got work to do.
chop chop.
Yep, exactly. And because there's time and place for that too.
There is, there is. And tell me, so how did this course that you teach? So crystals were a big part of things. Were you working with crystals and Reiki before you got connected with Laurel and got working on this course? Tell me about the.
Like I said, I was working with crystals and had even studied crystal healing long before I knew anything about Reiki. So I had a lot
Wow.
of different books on crystal healing. And then that was also, but more using, okay, I'm using this stone because the color is this and it's going to help with my solar plexus. And at that point, I didn't understand the consciousness of crystals quite the same. Even though I had been communicating with crystals for quite some time, I didn't realize quite the how intense the personalities were with them and how they worked. Reiki really helped clear that up for me, and working with that divine energy, and that showed me that the consciousness of those crystals was much more expansive than what I ever understood. And so then when I knew of Michael and Laurel
Yes.
in Sedona, Arizona, and the classes that she taught, and that she was working with the Lemurian energies, I knew that I had to take that. And so I really didn't learn a lot new.
Okay.
I was able to connect with the energies, and honestly, my that experience. So at that time, she would teach the introductory class and the intermediate class together on the
Okay.
same week with a break in between the two classes. And this was very unusual for me to be able to get the time off and to spend that kind of money for being there for 5 days. But it was something that I had to do. And my experience was so profound that it was almost hallucinogenic.
Really?
Yeah, it's
I can see that. I get ungrounded in crystal shots in a way.
and I had prepared. So I was studying Vogel crystals, which is a very specific form of cut crystal and the crystal shape. And since I had an experience with faceting, I was working faceting a Vogel inspired crystal, a phantom quartz crystal. And I was doing Reiki on this crystal the entire time I was cutting it. So I was meditating and meditating and meditating about this whole crystal course for weeks and weeks. And then I also was able to pay for a session from Laurel. And like I said, it was just absolutely such a transformative experience for me. So yeah, I was able to learn about listening to the crystals and being much more intuitive with the crystals.
Okay.
Uh, yeah, and of course, Laurel and I just really bonded over that, or with the crystals. And so I just have so much love and appreciation for the work that she did. And like our Reiki 1 and 2 manual, that's a huge manual. There is a lot of information in that book. If we were to teach a class and went over everything, we would have a class that would be probably 4 weeks long every
Right.
day. We taught so the information itself when we're teaching isn't as important as connecting our students with the energies of the content, which is one of the reasons why we don't share the symbols with students, because it's not so much being able to recognize the symbol, but they need to have the connection to the energy of the symbol, and that's what's important. And so that's something I think any class that we teach is connecting with the energy and teaching from the energy, which I love to do. And
No,
every class is so different. Oh my gosh.
it, I think that the classes meet the students where they're at, right? And yeah, and so I agree with you. I think every class is different for that very reason. And even when I go and take a class a second time, the exact same class, exact same teacher, I'm not in the same place. So the class meets me in a different place. So yeah, I love teaching. I've discovered that's my big, I am a
Because
teacher.
I learn from
Learn every
teaching
time if you want.
every time.
I've had a theory, and that's why I have taught horseback riding lessons and horsemanship and had people to train horses for so many years, is that if you want to learn something really well, teach it. It's going to push you to really learn. So tell me a little bit about the Reiki, the crystal classes themselves, Jay. I'd love to, you've really piqued my interest.
So
I'd love to learn more.
So, first of all, like in the introductory class, we're, you're learning a few layouts to work with clients, which are really important. But you're also learning how to connect with the stones at a much deeper level, which I could go and I could take a bunch of crystals and I could have lay you on a table and I could just throw a bunch of rocks around you. And yes, there would be an energetic connection that would happen there. There would be a shift in the change in the energy. But if I take those crystals and I energetically place them mindfully
Right.
in different places, and I'm anchoring the energies mindfully, it's a very different experience. And it's also learning an appreciation to Mother Earth, which is comes in with that connection with the animal Reiki, and then understanding and working with the authenticity of the crystals themselves, and understanding and appreciate of the cost of removing those crystals from the earth.
Mm.
So sometimes there's a sadness with some of these crystals, and working with it, how they were removed from the earth. So there's a lot of work just energetically working with and developing connection with the crystals in that introductory class.
Okay.
Even it's not just learning how to place the stones, it's making an energetic connection with the crystals.
Yeah.
The intermediate class, we also will learn an additional layouts as well there. But then we're also spend one entire day just working with Vogel crystal healing, which is a very unique energy, and working with the crystals that have been cut to very specific angles.
Okay.
And that can be very powerful. And because they are resonating with in very different frequencies. Again, as we talk about in class, the crystals vibrate at very specific frequencies. We know that scientifically.
Yes.
And that's why we are talking on Zoom.
Yes.
And
It's
this has
because of
been recorded
crystals.
because of crystals. Our crystals are the crystal liquid displays.
Yes.
Marcel Vogel, the founder of the Vogel crystal, developed the first liquid crystal display in the 60s. They just didn't know how to use it because there was no application there at that time. We just had printers that were our display. We didn't even have a display. So there's so much that the technology and the vibrations of the crystals that we get to learn and understand. The advanced class just actually takes us to a little bit deeper level of, in my opinion, of the Lemurian connections and connecting with the origins of that peaceful society. Because Lemuria, from what my connections is that this is a society that was all about peace and holistically together. There was not conflict in that society. It was very powerful. It was all about healing and transformation. There was no ego in Lemuria. And
It's
that's the connection that I make. And then we also talk about that how to teach from an energetic presence from that class. I've had students in classes, in crystal classes, that are in a hurry to play. Okay, if they're in their mind, I got to place this crystal. I got to get this, and I want to go. No, stop.
yeah,
It's where they say it's not about the destination of where you get to, but the journey. It's the same thing in placing crystals. It's the journey of placing the crystals, making that energetic connection. That's important. Sometimes, and that comes with practice. That
yeah.
comes with just practice and work.
I want to just go back to Lemuria because just intuitively on my own, I think I got a very similar. Lemuria is I it's something I was curious about, but not so curious that I did a lot of research. But when I was working on a past life offering that I offered to my students a few years ago, I got very clear messages that Lemuria was basically a place without duality. And so that therefore makes it similar to what we talk about it as third heaven with our holy fire. And we know that it's possible to bring that third heaven, very peaceful type of existence here to the planet and to live within it, even amidst the duality. But the message I got, and I don't know if this resonates with what you heard, Jay, was that because time is a human construct, and it's just to help us understand everything is actually all happening at the same time. And time is something that helps us understand our development. But I just saw that for many of us, Lemuria, maybe it's similar, maybe it's what would be considered the Garden of Eden or something like that. But for many of us, it was a way to get used to a physical existence outside of duality, and then we chose to then step into the duality. So for many of us, it was a first lifetime, is what I was shown. So I don't know, but
Because I believe in my just my own intuition is
mm,
that Lemuria existed in part of the creation of the planet.
exactly, exactly,
And but yet it's still is a dimension versus this a physical place, perhaps. And so it's a dimension that happens currently in the
yeah,
present and the past all at the same time.
exactly. And it's almost like it exists within a Bermuda Triangle or something where we can't see it, but it's there. But I did get that it was physical. And
Yeah, so that just reminded me of a thing that happened in in one of Laurel's classes. Now, Laurel was a master teacher, and so she's could handle lots of different situations. She's had students who would all kinds of little different things, and she knew how spirit would work with her. And I told you I was in that particular 5 days of being there. I was in this energetic state that I've never been in since,
okay.
honestly. And but I think this was the second class, but she was talking about Lumeria in the class, and she goes, and some people believe that Lumeria was destroyed.
Right, right.
And I channeled an energy, an entity came out of me. And this voice came out of me that said, no, it's not. It
Yeah,
wasn't me speaking.
I believe it still exists.
No, it's not.
I
And
it is. I do
and
believe.
Lorel looks and goes, okay then.
She was delightful.
And I'm looking around like, where did that even come from? And so, yeah, I've also people talk about Atlantis
Yeah,
and a lot of the knowledge, and this is just my perceptions again, is that a lot of the knowledge and basis of and the energies and that powered Atlantis came from the knowledge of Lemuria.
yeah.
But those energies were again moved into a dualistic society,
I was just going to
moved
say,
into
I've always
power.
thought that Atlantis was had duality. Yeah.
Very much. That was its downfall.
Yes.
And they took a lot of what made Atlantis so powerful was they were using the principles of the power that was from Lemuria and those energetic principles, and but they polluted it in many different ways,
Yeah.
and that was to me that's what its downfall was. And I've got lots of stories that I've intuitively connected to. So yeah,
And
yeah,
nice
just
to hear that our Lemuria story that
yeah, it just
yeah,
so I have so much appreciation for just those little awarenesses,
yeah.
and because it helps understand our purpose in life and what we are and what we can accomplish. And we can accomplish so much more than what a lot of times what we even imagine. And it's important for us to be able to think beyond our current situation. And that's really extremely important. Lemurian quartz crystals. Now, that's just a name. I don't necessarily believe those quartz crystals came from specifically from Lemuria, but I love working with those two types of crystals.
They feel really neat, don't they?
They just feel that they have so much infinite wisdom within them, the styrations and the energies with them. Because I believe these crystals. So I was able to present on crystals at the International Reiki Retreat, and within these crystals, they actually have the vibrations of the creation of Earth.
Yeah.
And then you think about it, they actually hold
There's
that
wisdom in
very vibration.
even every rock that I pick up on the beach. I'm like, how old are you? What have you seen?
And
And
the elements of those crystals are from the very, were formed from creation itself.
that's right. They were present for the Big Bang.
Yeah. And before.
And our body is made of the earth. And I often take this back even scientifically. If you think about it, you started off as a sperm and an egg that came together to form an ovum, but that ovum had to grow, and it grew as your mother ate food that was grown in the earth. As tiny seeds were placed in the earth, and the earth goes into those seeds and becomes carrots and spinach and just all of the wonderful.
And what holds us up? We have a crystalline structure. Our bone structures are crystalline
I didn't know that.
energies. Yeah.
I did not know that, Jay.
It's mineral. You think about it, our bones are a mineral.
Mineral. And so then think about the body and the bones. They
Yep.
all grew as our mother and then later us as we ate food that came from the earth. I think quite often one of the things that I say in prayer, and it came from Colleen Benally, is our bodies are made of the earth to give our spirit life and breath. And but even if you take it to science, they are made of the earth, which is made of the crystals.
Exactly. Yeah. It just
It's amazing.
so as we learning through classes and coursework, we can improve our lives and we can improve our lives of our clients as
Mm.
we have those a little bit better understanding and we're able to use and connect with spiritual energies that govern these principles.
Amazing.
It's very, very transformative for our students when they can make those connections.
I love that. Jay, before you lead us in a meditation today, I'm wondering, I'd like to give people my favorite tip with crystals, and if you would too, I always let crystals choose me. And so rather than say, oh, I need such and such, I'm going, and I love wearing crystals. I love giving Reiki to crystals and receiving back. I use crystals in my crystal Reiki grid. But when I love crystal stores, I love them. But when I go into a crystal store, I just usually look around and there's often something that just looks a little brighter than the rest. It might be a tiny little thing, not big or spectacular. And I just know, oh, that's the one I need right now. And what I've loved to do is then I take it home, or my favorite crystal shop, it closed, but I used to go in and they had a crystal Bible right there, and the book, the Crystal Bible. And I would say, oh, this is what I'm needing today. Do you mind looking it up so I can read the properties? And we would look it up, and sure enough, the properties were dead on exactly what I needed at that time. So, what's one of your favorite tips?
I think the one that tip that I think is resonating with me is understanding that I may have purchased a crystal and I may have spent a lot of money on different crystals. Do not own the crystals.
Yeah.
And so I am blessed with their presence. And I did at one point, I had a significant theft and had a lot of crystals stolen. Guess what? I still connected with those crystals. Were those crystals tarnished in any way? No, they weren't mine. And I have lent crystals to people. I had this one person, it was a hospice client. It was a parent or a child of a parent that was on hospice. And I lent them this crystal. And they go, oh, Jay, because what are we going to do about that crystal? And I go, what crystal? I had totally forgotten. I was going, if I can't remember it, it must be
Not
meant
mine
for you.
anymore.
So that I think that's the biggest thing to understand is that these are wonderful tools, friends, consciousness that are here to help us. And they some of the smallest crystals are going to be very, like you were mentioning, can be extremely powerful for us, but I really truly don't own them. They belong to the earth, they belong to Mother Earth, and I may be blessed to work with them and have them in my life, but they're not here permanently
No. And
for
I
me.
know there's, I noticed that there are some crystals that I'm meant to work with for a certain length of time. And then I'm also aware that, oh, our time together is done. And I either give them away to somebody who could use them or give them back to the earth. And one of my favorite things that I love to do is, and I always ask the crystal, what do you want? What do you want? Are you
Right. Yeah, exactly.
want to go back to the earth? Do you want to be given to a student, a friend, a client? Or do you want to go in the stream and spread some of the love and Reiki that we've built together, put that into the waters? And so there's a lovely ceremony that I like to do where I place it in the hidden brook of my farm, Hidden Brook Farm, and knowing that all streams go to the rivers, all rivers go to the ocean, and then the water goes up into the atmosphere and comes back down onto the earth again. So there's the opportunity for those crystals to send love and Reiki along their entire journey or entire path.
I had a friend many years ago that, again, this is before I knew anything about Reiki, and they told me that they had these beautiful crystals and they'd spent a lot of money on some of these crystals. And as part of a gratitude ceremony, it took them deep into the ocean. We were swimming out in the ocean and then released them into the ocean. And I was going, no, my gosh. Oh. So that, because that was before a lot of my understanding. And now I just see how beautiful that was.
Oh, wow.
And one of the things that on that first trip to Ecuador, Karen Kagan and I were given a beautiful crystal orb, and we released into Laguna Coacocha, which is a crater lake up there. And it was just such a beautiful experience.
I love it. I love it. Jay, could I ask you to lead us in a meditation to just help us connect, maybe with the crystals that are already in our lives, or maybe the crystals that will be coming?
We're becoming. And so, okay, we have about 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go ahead and everyone just take a couple of deep breaths in and out. And in this moment, I want you to connect with the beautiful energies of gratitude. Because when we're talking about Mother Earth, the energies of Mother Earth, I personally have so much gratitude for what she has blessed us with. She's created this beautiful planet that has abundance of food for us to help us grow. And then she's also birthed magnificent, beautiful works of art through rocks and crystals. As you breathe in gratitude, and as you exhale, I want you to exhale anything that's no longer serving you. Breathe in gratitude. Exhale anything that's no longer serving you, being repurposed. So Mother Earth is a natural recycler, and she helps us to recycle our energies. So as we're breathing in that gratitude, she's giving us beautiful insights into our life. And as we exhale out, we're exhaling out, emptying our recycle bin. And she's repurposing those energies. And as we connect with the energies of Mother Earth, we feel that beautiful connection coming up through the bottoms of our feet. She connects and sends us to the beauties of actual creation itself. And when that creation itself, there's a beautiful light, that spark of actual creation, that's in each one of us. And often we neglect that spark and we fail to see that spark. But we also have the ability to hold a crystal which contains that spark as well. I want you to connect now with that spark of creation and realize that each crystal was created intentionally. Divine beings didn't haphazardly create crystalline energy, but each crystal formation was done intentionally with brothers and sisters in the light, working with these energies and frequencies that help sustain the life and energy of our planet. When we can connect with these life force energies of the crystalline natures, we are refining our energies. Then using our connection to the Reiki energies of the divine, we are furthering, expanding those energies and those frequencies. Breathe in now that refined energy. And now I want you, as you exhale, I want you to exhale exponentially energies out. And you're recycling energies in and out through your breath. As you're doing this, you are expanding energetically. You're working as a transformer that's holding space of this beautiful Reiki energy and the energies of the crystals that work as resistors and are able to transmit energies at long distances and hold the energies and frequencies for long periods of time. And continue to connect. Feel the vibration of the crystalline core of the planet. These vibrations knew you long before you were ever created, knew your energetic presence and your footprint, knew of your plan and your destiny, even as the earth was formed. Realize that each one of us has an energetic footprint, just like the crystals do. Our energetic aura shines out into the universe for eternity. All of our thoughts, all of our intentions affect the entire universe. And as we become mastered by the energies of Reiki, we're able to modulate these energies, often with crystals, to help us to stay connected to the divine, to help us stay focused on our purpose in the creation of this planet, and to understand the principles that sometimes are unique to each one of us. We all have different purposes, but we are all just as important. At this time, we offer a prayer of gratitude for not only the crystals, but for each of us that are participating in this meditation. Because just like these beautiful, wonderful crystals, we are all part of creation. Our existence is extremely valuable and essential to Mother Earth. The crystalline energies are brothers and sisters to our soul consciousness. And energetically, we have been reconnecting with these energies of this planet for eons of time. Breathe in, breathe out. As you connect with Mother Earth deeper and deeper, the crystalline core, you realize that you are being guided by specific Lemurian frequencies. These may be brothers and sisters of the light who have a certain amount of important work that working with the Lemurian frequencies and energies, and they're divinely connected with you. As you feel their divine presence, just recognize that they are here to help you on your journey, and that all we have to do is energetically connect with them and ask, and they'll be with us in our journey to help us to be co-creators in a beautiful planet, and that we can make a difference as we honor the principles of Mother Earth, the principles and peace of Lemuria, the frequencies of Lemuria. As you breathe deep in and out, stay connected with your own energetic frequencies and connecting with the energies of the crystalline core of the planet. I want you to feel your essence full of the vibrations. Feel the vibrations flowing through you. Look into your future and realize there are multiple potential for you, and you have purpose in your life. Take a couple of deeper breaths. Start to relax. And as we start to come back, we offer gratitude for the crystalline energies and for Mother Earth and for all the gifts that she has given us. Come back now, feeling yourself start to ground, grounding and connecting deeper and deeper, becoming more conscious. And as you're ready, go ahead and open your eyes, and again in a prayer of gratitude. And so it is.
And so it is.
So with these types of experiences, and they're always very different. I don't typically use a script for these journeys, and it just see what the spirit brings up. And so it's always interesting to find how important each one of us are. Each one of us, when we see a crystal rock, we oh, like that. Guess when Mother Earth sees us, she goes just like that too. It's just important to remember that each one of us are that important. And sometimes because we're in this dualistic world, we forget that. We forget how important we are and that we make a difference. How we choose to energetically connect with the world, we make a difference. And we can change, we do change this world just with our consciousness. And the crystals want to help us work with that.
Jay, thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today, and just thank you for all the work that you do. It's amazing. And I also want to thank each and every listener. I think, just as Jay said, you make a difference on this planet just by being you. So thank you for being the beautiful light that you are in the world. Never forget how important you are, and we love you. Namaste. Thank you.